I want to invite the author, Bhaskar Kamble, to come and share with us, starting from what actually led you to write this book. And a lot of engineers and my fellow students at IIT and other people haven't really gotten into the history of what they're studying, or we study science and we study physics and we study math, but we never really ask the question, where did this come from? So how did that journey begin for you, and how did you come up and bring us this wonderful offering? Please share.
Yeah, so I think for me it was quite important for me to know the truth of where things have come from. So I, of course, like for like most of the people, I had this assumption in my mind that the West is the superior civilization. They are the torchbearers of knowledge, and mathematics comes from them. It comes from Greece. Knowledge comes from Greece, and everything. I was like brought up with this notion from right from the school days. And it was slowly, I think, yeah, I've also mentioned this in my book, like at some points I heard from someone say that the so-called Pythagoras theorem was known in India before him, from Baudhayana and everything. This was sometime in 2010 or so. I heard from someone, and then I was like, I just dismissed it totally. Like, what is this? This is just right wing Hindu right wing propaganda. This was what the kind of thoughts that came into my mind, because I thought it's just this crazy people who want to claim that that everything comes from India, from everything from the Hindu civilization and so on. So I dismissed it like that because I was brought up with this thing, with this mindset. And but it was like 2 years later that I happened to come across, when I was starting to read these things more seriously. I was reading this book by Dharampal on the collection of Indian. He had collected a series of articles on Indian science and technology. So he had given one article by John Playfair called "On the Astronomy of the Brahmins." And there he mentions, this Playfair describes this method for calculating eclipses which the Indians used, and where the so-called Pythagoras theorem was used. And he says that it is interesting to note that this theorem was used here centuries before Pythagoras. And that really shook me, because it showed me the amount to which I had been brainwashed, I had been colonized into thinking that everything is just bad, everything is just backward coming from India, it's just about the caste system and so on. So I started researching more and more about this, and then I realized that actually all this information is there in the historical journals, in the articles, but they're all research journals. They're all in a specific niche, they're not at all in the public consciousness. The public consciousness consists just of this notion that India is backward and it's nothing but the caste system. And this was for me a kind of really disturbing. In fact, I would say it was disturbing for me, because I felt cheated from my teachers, from my peers, and from the education system. I felt cheated, and I thought I could not actually, I could not accept it, obviously. So I I tried to collect all this information. I went on a deep study of these things, and collected this information. And then this is how basically I started off my journey on my research into the history of Indian Hindu mathematics. So and I am aware of like two triggers in my book's title. One is called how Hindu mathematics changed the world and why this history was erased. So there are two triggers in this book, which also shows the level of colonization in most people. That the word Hindu itself is a trigger for most people. I hear that oh, why do you use the word Hindu? Why do you use the word Hindu? Hindu, it's not a religion, etc., etc., etc. So this for me was also. I think I should also make it clear that why I use the word Hindu mathematics in my title is that to make it clear that it refers to the Hindu civilization, and the word Hindu has become almost a dirty word in recent years, and people are actually apologetic, and people feel ashamed to say that they are Hindu, or to have anything to do with Hindu society. So this I feel very strange. I think this is really not okay. And most of the scholars, they have been talking of Hindu mathematics, explicitly Hindu mathematics, like till the 1980s, till 1990s. Only in recent years it has been people somehow feel this term is being avoided. And secondly, it's the mathematics, as I have tried to explain in my book, that this mathematics that arose in this civilization is closely tied up to the philosophy to the Hindu philosophy of the Upanishads, of the yeah or basically the philosophy of the Hindu tradition. So this I will, for example, like, give you a simple example. Like algebra, it's also called bija ganita, it's also called avyakta ganita. So if you read the Bhagavad Gita, for example, you will see, the avyakta and the vyakta. Avyakta means the unmanifest, whereas vyakta means the manifest. So algebra, for example, has such a deep connection to the roots of Hindu philosophy. And I also wanted to make it very clear in my book, that it was not just about laying out the facts one after the other of the mathematics, but it was also about emphasizing this connection with the philosophy, with the knowledge framework. So in the West, for example, knowledge is totally 100%, it's a materialistic framework. At least there are some exceptions, some people who talk about this, which is against the common narrative, but the main thing is that it's a materialistic framework. Whereas in the Hindu philosophy, it is the materialistic and the so-called spiritual are both needed. You cannot have one at the expense of the other. So it is so-called this idea of para and the apara prakriti, for example, which is mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita chapter 7, para and the apara prakriti. So this is how the framework also is. I have been at some pains to describe in my book the framework of mathematics in this framework. Yeah.